So today we're going to be continuing with the CSS part, and I'm just going to open my text editor as always, and I'm also going to start the server. I'm going to just type live HTML and click here. So this is our regular setup where we just start the server on some localhost ports. Okay, so you can see that we have nothing really. So we have nothing, but if I go to the inspector panel and if I go and look inside of the body, there is a board div, and within that there are 8 rows, and within each row there are 8 columns. So that's what we did last time if you needed a reminder. So let's just go back here and start today's episode. Here I'm just going to open up the index.html, and you can see what we did previously where we have all of our 64 squares. Now I'm going to need to open the style.css, but first I got to link the HTML with the CSS. So I'm going to be doing that inside of the head. Inside of the head, I'm going to create a tag that is called the link tag. Now this link tag is used to link our HTML to some external assets. In this case, we're going to be using it for a CSS style sheet. So we have to tell that the HTML link tag here, in this case, will be referring to a style sheet. So I'm going to say link rel equals style sheet. Now this rel attribute is actually a special attribute that tells the HTML what kind of assets we are linking to. Okay, next up, href. Href is just the URL or the position of the style sheet. Now, if you look at our directory structure, we have the index.html, and directly beside it, we have the style.css. So they're in the same folder. So it's very easy. We want to say /style.css. Okay, so dot slash meaning start from this current directory. The dot, that means the current directory. Then the slash means then go to style.css. Now, if we just save this, and if I open up the style.css here, what we can do is we can just go with body, background, red. Okay, and if I save it and if we go here, you can see that the background has become red, meaning we have correctly just created all of the CSS linking that we need. So let's start with actual CSS. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all before, all after. Now this syntax basically means select every element inside of the page, everything, all elements and all pseudo elements. So from this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply box sizing, border box. This means that when you calculate the width and height of an element, consider both the internal borders, right? So if this does not, if the basically you have to include this always, because this makes the width and height calculations a bit easier. It also includes stuff like the border and padding, stuff like that when it calculates the height. So it's something that is necessary to have in most of your projects. Now from this, we can just go into the body, and I'm going to say body margin 0, padding 0. Now, you might know that the body by default would have some padding and margin applied to it. That's the default CSS. And we just want to make sure that that isn't the case because it will mess up all of our layouts. Now, doing that, what I want to do next is I want to go to the body and I want to say background color. And I want to change the background color to be a dark color. So I'm going to be using a hexadecimal format. I'm going to say 111111. This is a pretty dark color. It's not full black because I don't really like using black. Doesn't matter, you can use whatever color you want, but I'm going to be using this dark color. Okay, so this is the dark color, so I think it's easier on the eyes. Next up, we have to go and talk about the board, right? So the board, for example, if I apply anything to the board, it's pretty hard to see because you can see the board here. If I expand the body, you can see the board here, it doesn't have any content that can be visible. So all of the divs are invisible. So the board itself won't really have much of an effect. So before we talk about the board, we have to talk about the squares. So we have to apply a certain amount of sizing to the square. We have to make the squares visible. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say board. I'm going to go into a row and I'm going to go into a square. Again, remember this is the syntax we use to name our classes. Okay, from this, I want to apply heights to them. Now I want to do 64 pixels and I want to have a width of 64 pixels as well. Okay. Now if I do that and if I go inside here, you can see that I have a row of squares. Like they are currently they are stacked one on top of each other, but you can see that they are 64 by 64 pixels. That's great, but I would now have to do is I want to say background color, and I need to give them a background color, which is 56CBE8, if you want to follow along with me. Now I just copied this from somewhere else. I like it is some sort of a blue color, uh, and this sort of blue color, as you can see. And we might change it in the future, it doesn't matter, but I just want to show you, once you give it a height and a width and a background color, a div becomes visible. So now we have 64 div elements, and each of them having a height and width of 64. Now there are other ways of achieving this. Instead of height and width, we can use aspect ratios, but I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible, and I'm going to avoid that for the time being. In the future, I think that's a better implementation to have. So let's move on. From this, we can actually go up and we can talk about the rows. So I'm going to go to board underscore underscore row, right? From this row, I'm just going to put each element inside of the row side by side. And for that, I'm just going to be simply using flexbox. So I'm going to say display flex, and this will apply a flexbox layout into each row. So now you can see we have each row containing 64 by 64 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. Okay, so now if I do this, I can see that this is a bit small, right? But first, let me go back and apply a display grid, this time to the body. And I want to do is place content center. Now, what this will do is it will take everything inside of the body and it will create a grid layout. Using this grid layout, it will just create a grid layout and center all the content within it. So the place content center basically just centers everything within the grid layout. Okay, so you can see this. Now, you might notice that we have a body that is not extending up to the bottom, because you can see the grid layout stops here, right? So this is because our body is actually just taking up to this place. So the easiest way to fix this is to go down and say minimum height, min height, 100 VH. VH is a unit of measurement which stands for view height. So the viewport height. The viewport height is the height of the screen. So we want to make sure that at all times our height of the body is the full height of the screen. So if you do that, you can see it is centered. Now the board is quite small and we have to fix this. So I can go and adjust each square and make it bigger, but I have a better idea. And I'm going to go up top here and I'm going to create a variable, right? I'm going to go with roots, and within our roots, I can just create a variable. So I'm going to say square size, and I'm going to apply like around 72 pixels to it. And instead of using 64, I want to go over here and I'm going to say var inside, I'm going to say square size. And I obviously have to apply this here as well to get a perfect square. But instead, let's actually use aspect ratio. So I'm going to say aspect ratio, and it's going to be 1 divided by 1. That is a 1 by 1 aspect ratio. So if I do that, okay, something's wrong and it's not working. That's great. We need to have this sort of issues to learn, right? So Okay, we can go into each of the boards, and the best way of doing this is you can go actually and look here, right? So we can see that the aspect ratio has been applied, and the height, the square size, the variable is not actually defined. So that's the problem, seems. Perhaps I've mistaken with some sort of notation. So let's see, maybe I only need one column here. Okay, so that was the problem. In the rules, I applied two dots, two colons, but I actually needed one. And again, as I told you, syntax, right? You don't really need to just memorize everything. It will come to you with time. And as you can see, I'm forgetting it. It's not the main idea. The main idea is knowing how to think within the software you are developing. So if I'm working as a front-end developer, I need to know how to work as a front-end, how to think as a front-end developer, uh, rather than just knowing the syntax. Because there are so many programming languages, and there are so many types of syntax, but you don't really need to know all of them. You just need to know how to think. Okay, great. So we have all of our squares. Let me just remove this. Okay, I also again want to make it bigger. So instead of going and changing it both on the height and the width, I can just go and apply it here, 78, right? For example, 78 pixels. Okay, 78. Let's just save that. And as I save it, I want you to notice that the aspect ratio 1 by 1 basically means your height and width should have a proportion 1 to 1. So if your height is 78 pixels, your width is 78 pixels. So since we are applying the height to be the variable square size, it is 78 pixels. So the width will automatically get that without us needing to change anything. So let's see. Okay, it is increasing. I like this, but I want to perhaps go a bit further here. So maybe from 76 we go 96. Okay, 96 is perfect. 96 is exactly what I need. So now I can go open up the inspector tab, and I go to the body, then the board, then the rows, and you can see that I have 8 squares on each row, and I have 8 rows. So you can see how much I have. 64. I have 64 divs, and they are in the correct order. Now, this doesn't look like chess, and that's because it isn't really a chessboard. It doesn't have the pattern of like blue, white, black, white. So it needs that pattern, and we're going to be fixing that in the next episode of this series. So that's all we did for today. We basically worked with CSS, and we set up our CSS, and we created a board, centered it, and worked with variables and aspect ratio, which is a good practice. So I think that's all for today. We're going to be continuing with a new video tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Really hope you enjoyed. Until next time, goodbye.